Hello, students. It's nice to see you again. How are you? I'm doing fine. To this week, my students were starting to talk about the Philippines and the forests in the Philippines, and that made me think about nature, animals, wildlife, and so on. It made me really want to research more about the beautiful forests in the Philippines and what they do for the environment and the dangers, the troubles that forests are in. So that's today's topic. We're talking about nature and forests. I'd like you guys to tell me about your experiences in forests, forests in your country, and so on. So that'll be in the discussion questions at the end of the article. And I will share maybe some of the big forests that I've been to and what I think of them and things like that. This is episode number, I don't know, 25 or 26 or something like that. So we've been doing a lot of lessons. I hope you guys have been enjoying them. Anyway, let's get started in today's topic. It's called deforestation. Deforestation. This means like cutting, like the forest is shrinking because of human involvement. Something humans are doing to make the forest shrink. So, reducing the forest. That's called deforestation. And it's a big problem in the world. We'll talk about it in the article, but I hope you guys can think about, the importance of nature and forests and so on when we read the article together. So let's start reading. This article starts with a quote, so I'll read the quote. "A people without children would face a hopeless future. A country without trees is almost as helpless." This was said by the U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, who was an advocate of protecting nature. He believed that nature, forests, and large national parks were very important to the country and offered many benefits to that country's future. For this article, let's look at the importance of forests, what they provide for their countries, the dangers of deforestation, and what some countries are doing to protect their forests. First, let's look at all the wonderful benefits that forests provide. There are three main benefits that forests generally provide for the world. Number one is habitat for plants and animals. Next is food and agriculture for humans. And the third is a vacuum for CO2 emissions. First, we'll talk about habitat for plants and animals. Let me move this camera down a little bit. It's kind of high. There we go. Okay, so 80% of biodiversity lives in forests. That means that 80% of all species on land, all species come from forested areas. Almost all of the interesting animals that we learn about on land are living in the forests around the world, from small little insects and critters to big wolves, tigers, and bears. The world is a much more interesting place because of the biodiversity of species, and it's all thanks to forests. A lot of the fruits and nuts that humans eat also come from the forest, and many medicines come from plants in forests as well. Some countries depend heavily on their forests to provide crops and agriculture that strengthens their economy. Finally, forests help us breathe and make our air clean. They eat up the pollutions in the air and filter it to create breathable, clean air. The trees and plants use CO2 to make energy for growth. CO2 is also the poison that is polluting our atmosphere and raising the global temperatures. So it is very beneficial to keep our forests growing and healthy, so they can keep the world cool and clean. We can see that there are so many benefits that the forests are giving us. So why are they disappearing rapidly? Well, the answer is that the materials inside the forest are wanted by humans. The three main reasons for deforestation is agricultural expansion, which means cutting down forests in order to build farms or crops. The second reason for deforestation is wood extractions, cutting down trees and using the wood to build man-made things like houses and so on. The third main reason for deforestation is infrastructure expansion, which means turning forests into villages, towns, or cities. The population grows by the year, which means people are cutting down forests and using that land for their own needs. It is happening faster than the trees have a chance to grow back, which means that forests are disappearing. But some countries are fighting back. In a previous essay, we learned about the SDGs. And there's one SDG called SDG 15, Life on Land, that is focusing on preserving natural habitats, including preventing deforestation. Many countries around the world are recognizing the devastation from deforestation. They're fighting hard to not only prevent extreme deforestation, but they are also making programs to reforest areas cut down by loggers. Tree planting campaigns in the Philippines hope to restore much of the forests lost over the previous 20 years. Many organizations like Greenpeace are doing their best to promote the sustainability and protections of forests, and puts pressure on companies to do the same. The main thing everyone can do is to stay informed on the issue and do their best to respect nature and condemn deforestation. Let's all enjoy the forests, trees, animals, and all the benefits they bring. All right, that's all for the article. I want to talk a little bit more because there's some complex things in the article. First, let's talk about the trees. I said that it's like a vacuum for CO2. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So, trees make energy. It's called photosynthesis. It's a very scientific way of saying the trees turning the atmosphere into energy for the tree. And one way it does this is it takes in CO2 from the atmosphere, and then it uses that CO2 to create growth. The tree will grow. And the CO2 will stay in the tree. It won't go back into the atmosphere. And then, of course, the tree creates oxygen, which is a healthy chemical for our atmosphere. This creates a colder environment. So CO2 is rising the temperature of the world, but if the trees capture the CO2, the temperature can go back down. That's why trees are so important. Trees also do a lot more. Like when trees get rid of like oxygen, they're also getting rid of moisture. And that moisture goes up into making clouds, and the clouds rain for all the other trees. So actually, because there are trees, there is more rainfall. If you cut down the trees, the area will become much more dry, which can create drought, which is not good for farms or agriculture. So trees and having big forests are really beneficial for countries' agriculture. Also, I talked about the Philippines, and I want to talk a little bit about what I was researching. So it says that tree planting campaigns in the Philippines hope to restore much of the forests lost over the previous 20 years. Okay, so as I was researching, the Philippines had more than 80% of the land was forest. And now, these days, less than 20% is forest. Of course, this is because the population of the Philippines is growing. There are big cities in the Philippines. That area used to be forest, but it's now, a big city. And that's okay. Of course, people need to live somewhere. And, the modern world is cities, so people can't live in trees or something like that. But most of the, deforestation in the past 20 years is not being lived in. It's just people want wood, or people want, to create farmland or something like that. And they're cutting down trees too fast, so trees can't grow back in the Philippines. Now, the government is creating some campaigns to replant some trees and help protect areas of deforestation. The problem is that there is a lot of kind of corruption, and the government can't police the areas of deforestation. So there's illegal deforestation. Like, people are going in there illegally and cutting down trees and using that to sell for wood and so on. Hopefully the Philippines can help control the situation and grow back a lot of its forest. And they plan in the next 15 years, I think, by 2035, I think they said, they want to increase the forest cover back to something like 40%. So right now it's like 20. They want to go back to 40%. They have a big challenge, so I really hope they can do it. The Philippines has a lot of really interesting plants and animals. Okay, let's look at the vocabulary for this article. The first word is advocate, and in the article, it's up here. Theodore Roosevelt, who was an advocate of protecting nature. Let's practice the word. Advocate. Advocate. He was an advocate of protecting nature. An advocate means to publicly recommend or support something. It means somebody who is really outspoken. They tell people, they announce it officially or professionally. I advocate for something. And so Theodore Roosevelt was a very active conservationist. So he advocated for protecting nature. The next word is biodiversity. This is the variety of plant or animal life in the world or in a certain habitat. So diversity means different types, right? Different types, different species, different races, diversity. Bio is from biology. So biology is like the study of plants and animals. So biodiversity, plants or animal life. The next word is critters. This word is not used so often, so it's an unusual word, but it means small living creatures or animals. And in the article, I said that we learn about forests around the world, from small little insects and critters to big wolves, tigers, and bears. Actually, critters is just all animals, but in this sense, little critters, little insects, and little critters is small animals. Next is extraction. So to extract something means the action of removing something from a place, usually with effort or force. And in the article, we said the second reason for deforestation is wood extraction, cutting down trees and using the wood to build man-made things like houses. So they're cutting down the trees by force and removing them from the forests. Okay, the final word is infrastructure. And I'm pretty sure we used this word before in a previous essay, but I just really want you guys to remember this word because it's useful. And it means structures and facilities, including buildings, roads, transportation, and power supplies. Basically, any kind of public facility, public road, public area. This includes small parks, not the big forests and stuff, but infrastructure, buildings and things. All right, let's go on to our discussion questions. So in our discussion, we're going to focus on forests. So our discussion questions should also focus on forests. Parks are not necessarily forests. So the big national parks are considered forests. Small parks like Aoba no Morikoen or something like that, not really, they have a lot of trees, but it's not really considered a forest. So question number 1 is, do you have any nice memories of spending time in a forest? So tell me about maybe a camping trip, a trip to the mountains, and something like that. Okay, tell me a nice memory of spending time in a forest. Number 2, does your country try to protect the forests, and what are they doing? So if you know any information about protection rules or laws or something like that, planting campaigns, please tell me about it. Number 3, does your country have any special animal species that are protected in their habitat? This means that do you have any unique or special animals that live only in your country and they are kind of protected under law? Under the law, people can't hunt or attack them or anything like that. Number 4, what do you think is the most important negative impact of deforestation? I think most important negative is maybe strange English. I should change that. But I mean, like, what is the most devastating, the most negative, the most impactful negative impact of deforestation? So we talked about several impacts. Which do you think destroys the most forest? Okay, and the final question is, what can individual people do to help protect the environment? So what can we do as regular people? We're not part of the government. We're not leaders or anything like that. What can individual people, normal people like us, what can we do to help protect the environment? What do you guys do to protect the environment or to protect nature? Okay, I want to answer one of these questions, and I will choose question number 1. Do you have any nice memories of spending time in a forest? So I'll tell you guys about my family's camping trips. We always go in California. There's a very large forest called Yosemite National Valley, and it's a big park. It's a big forest. It's in the valley between 2 mountains. It's a very beautiful area, and not sure what kind of forest it is. I know there's a lot of like pine trees. What kind of forest is Yosemite? Okay, it's called a mountain forest, sequoia. So the trees are called sequoia, and there's also white fir, cedar, pine, and black oak. All right, well, there's a lot of biodiversity in Yosemite. They have a lot of different kinds of trees, a bunch of animals, including big bears too, which can be some scary sometimes. But my family goes camping in Yosemite once a year. At least they did when I was growing up. We got a cabin, and we always, had a great time staying in Yosemite Valley. Some of the best memories I have is waking up early in the morning. My father is cooking breakfast on a little like kind of barbecue camp stove, eggs or oatmeal or cereal or something like that. And waking up early in the morning, the fog is heavy in the valley, so you can't see the tops of the big trees. It has a very like quiet and relaxing atmosphere, having a cup of coffee or hot chocolate, sitting with my father, talking, listening to the river water flow by. Those were great experiences and memories for me. I hope in the future I can show my family and my daughter those new memories, get new memories from Yosemite National Park. Yeah, so that's my memory. I hope you guys have good memories of spending some time in a forest. For me, forests are just wonderful places where you can see nature without any human sort of development, and you can appreciate how unique and how interesting nature is. And of course, if you get a chance to see animals, birds, fish, mammals, insects, everything, it's really special. So yeah, I want to hear what you guys think about forests, and especially what we can do to protect our forests and prevent deforestation. All right, that's all for today's article. Thank you guys for listening, and I look forward to your responses to the discussion questions. Bye.